Welcome to The Explainer. Let's jump right in. Today, we're tracing the absolute roller coaster of a journey of someone you definitely know, but honestly, his path to the top is probably way wilder than you realize. We're looking at how a fiercely bullied kid risked literally everything, time and time again, to become the richest person on the planet. Yep, we're talking about Elon Musk. Born in Pretoria, South Africa in 1971, young Elon was, he was wired a bit differently than his peers. Look at this quote. While other kids were naturally terrified of the dark, Elon would rationally tell them, darkness is literally just the absence of light. No big deal. His brain was constantly functioning like this high-speed supercomputer. He'd slip into these intense, trance-like states, totally tuning out the world just to visualize really complex ideas. But, as you can probably guess, being that intellectual and, while different, unfortunately made him a huge target for severe bullying, even ending up hospitalized at one point. But hang on, because that ability to endure some serious pain, that becomes absolutely crucial later on. Let's trace how that intense focus really started to snowball. Check out this timeline. At age 10, he gets his first computer and just devours a 6-month programming workbook in 3 sleepless days. I mean, who does that? By 12, he codes and sells his very first video game, a space shooter called Blaster, for $500. But he knew he needed a way bigger stage to play on. So he packs up, moves to Canada at 17, and eventually makes his way to the US. Fast forward to 1995, the internet is barely waking up, and he and his brother Kimball decide to launch Zip2. It was an online city directory, basically trying to convince local businesses to get on the web back when massive, heavy physical phone books still ruled the world. And here is where that first massive gamble pays off. During the absolute peak of the dot-com boom in 1999, Compaq swoops in and buys Zip2. Suddenly, a 27-year-old Elon Musk walks away with $22 million. Now put yourself in his shoes for a second. For 99% of people, right here the story is over. You buy a private island, you retire, you are set for life. But for Musk, no way. This money just gave him the absolute freedom to hunt down a much bigger, much older industry to completely turn upside down. And that brings us to his next wild bet. He looked to traditional banking, physical branches, slow processes, tons of paperwork, and thought, why on earth isn't this entire system online? So he takes $12 million of his own fresh fortune and builds X.com. The vision was huge. Put payments, investments, loans, the whole shebang right on the internet. But guys, remember, this was 1999. People barely trusted putting their credit card into a website to buy a book, let alone handing over their entire life savings to some digital startup. So how do you conquer that massive lack of consumer trust? He used a totally genius marketing hack. He literally just bought their trust. X.com started handing out $20 free to every single new user plus another $10 for referrals. It was burning through cash like crazy, but it worked. They snagged 200,000 customers in just 2 months. It also kicked off a brutal, incredibly expensive turf war with another digital bank called PayPal, which was run by Peter Thiel. To avoid completely destroying each other, the two companies agreed to a high-stakes merger. But things weren't exactly smooth sailing. Musk's famously ruthless management style really started to show its teeth here. He was demanding absolutely impossible deadlines. We're talking expecting weeks of coding to be finished in just hours, and he was known for publicly micromanaging his staff. All this friction led to what is now a legendary Silicon Valley story. In September 2000, while Musk was literally on a plane for his honeymoon in Australia, his executives and board staged a massive coup. They fired him as CEO and replaced him with Peter Thiel. Ouch. Reaching for Mars, grief, rockets, and a new mission. Now, despite getting ousted from the CEO spot, Musk was still the largest shareholder. So when eBay bought PayPal for $1.5 billion in 2002, Musk walked away with a staggering $180 million. But this insane financial high was immediately followed by unimaginable personal tragedy. He lost his infant son at just 2.5 months old. To cope with that kind of profound, devastating grief, Musk actually reverted to his childhood survival mechanism. He threw his entire life, every waking moment, into a seemingly impossible new obsession. He looked at NASA's website, realized there was 0 concrete plans to go to Mars, and just decided, well, I guess I'll be the one to get humanity there. To get this done, he actually flew to Russia to try and buy some refurbished intercontinental ballistic missiles to shoot a greenhouse to Mars. But the Russians basically laughed him out of the room and tried to charge him $21 million for a single rocket. So, on the flight back, he pops open his laptop and starts crunching the numbers himself.
He figures out that the raw materials, the actual metal and fuel, only made up about 3% of a rocket's total cost. That realization led him to found SpaceX. He wanted to completely rewrite the rulebook of aerospace. Instead of relying on separate design teams and crazy expensive third-party parts, SpaceX was going to build and integrate everything in-house to drastically slash the cost of spaceflight.
And simultaneously, because, disrupting just one impossible industry wasn't enough for him, he was eyeing the car market. He firmly believed fossil fuels were a dead end. So he finds the struggling little startup called Tesla Motors and pours $6.5 million into it. The vision? String together thousands of lithium-ion laptop batteries to finally prove to the world that electric cars didn't have to be those slow, ugly, compromised golf carts we were used to. They were going to build a sports car, something blazing fast with a 300-kilometer range, doing 0 to 100 in 4 seconds, something genuinely aspirational.
2008, the all is lost moment. Because folks, right as we hit 2008, the music absolutely stops. The global financial crisis hits, and funding dries up completely overnight. Musk suddenly finds himself staring directly into the abyss, watching both of these massive, wildly expensive visions simultaneously collapsing around him. This is the classic all is lost moment of the entire story.
Look at this Falcon 1 runway sequence. Building rockets is brutally, notoriously hard, and step by step, you can literally see his fortune just evaporating. Step 1 in 2006, fire and crash. Step 2 in 2007, a midair spin and crash. Step 3 in August 2008, a massive midair explosion. After 3 totally devastating failures, SpaceX had burned through $100 million. They only had enough cash left for one final do-or-die launch. If Step 4 failed, SpaceX was completely dead.
And to make matters worse, at that exact same moment, Tesla was also bleeding out. The cost to build just one single Roadster had skyrocketed to $100,000, totally ruining their business model. With investors firmly slamming their wallets shut during a massive recession, Musk had to dig deep. I mean, really deep. He sold off his personal assets, including his prized McLaren sports car, and poured every last cent he had right back into Tesla, just to keep the lights on and make payroll for a few more days.
But then comes the ultimate payoff. In December 2008, the stars finally aligned in one miraculous month. That fourth Falcon 1 rocket, it flawlessly achieved orbit, making SpaceX the very first private company to pull that off. Just weeks later, NASA throws them a massive lifeline, a $1.6 billion contract to supply the International Space Station. And then, literally on Christmas Eve, Tesla somehow secures $40 million in emergency funding, yanking the company back from the brink of bankruptcy just hours before it was game over.
Surviving that brutal crisis is what allowed Tesla to move past the niche Roadster and launch the Model S in 2012. And wow, this completely redefined what a car could be for the mass market. It wasn't just a vehicle anymore. It was basically a massive computer on wheels. It had this huge 17-inch touchscreen, those cool auto-presenting door handles, and most importantly, it proved that a car could actually get better over time through over-the-air software updates, just like your smartphone. A total game changer.
From that newly rock-solid foundation, he just exploded, scaling this totally unprecedented empire of innovation. Just look at this breakdown. You've got SpaceX slashing space travel costs with reusable rockets and aiming for Mars. Tesla pushing autonomous EVs and clean energy. He launches Starlink to blanket the entire globe in high-speed internet. Then there's Neuralink, working on actual brain-computer interfaces. He buys Twitter, rebrands it as X to own the social media town square, and then he spins up XAI to jump right into the artificial intelligence race. He is literally operating at the absolute cutting edge of half a dozen incredibly difficult industries all at once. And when you look at this, you really grasp the staggering financial reality of someone who just repeatedly bets their entire fortune on the future. His estimated net worth hovers right around $400 billion. Let that sink in. That is roughly double the wealth of the next closest billionaire, Jeff Bezos. It's just a wild, staggering visualization of what actually happens when off-the-charts risk tolerance meets execution on a global scale. However, we have to be objective here. As we look at his operational footprint, we've got to note that this extreme wealth is absolutely paired with some really significant controversy. His management style demands grueling, intense work conditions. When he took over Twitter, he pushed through massive, sudden layoffs. His public statements are so volatile they can literally move global markets. And more recently, with over $280 million in political donations and very close ties to presidential politics, he wields this potent combo of extreme wealth and political influence. Naturally, that invites intense scrutiny from every side of the aisle. We are undeniably looking at a deeply polarizing figure. So what does this all mean for us? The takeaway from this explainer is pretty clear. Regardless of where you personally stand on his controversial methods, his politics, or his personality, the evidence points to a guy who flat out refuses to wait for the future to happen. He insists on building it himself, and he's dragging the rest of us right along with him. Which leaves us all with one massive question. After electric cars, reusable rockets, and brain chips, what impossible gamble will he take next? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, everyone. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you on the next one.